Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Greetings from the KYOS News Desk. We are joined once again this week by Merced City Council member, Mr. Josh Pedroso. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me back.
I want to tell you, I'm a little bit impressed right now. You're still wearing your Giant garb, in spite of.
I've been a Giants fan. I remember following them from 1989 on, and I've lived through the good days, and I've lived through
Look, man,
a lot of bad
here's the way
days.
I look at it. You guys have won 2 out of the last 3 World Series. Come on. I mean, is it not time to kind of just accept that it might be rotating a little bit? What do you think is going to happen during the as the trade deadline nears? You think they're going to shop everybody out and starting to recuperate some of their money?
I think that the Giants have been built on pitching for so long that now that they don't have any and they're not doing anything, they're going to have to start looking for some bullpen help. And then their 39-year-old second baseman, Scudero, has mallet finger, whatever that is. So he's got a tendon all messed up. Mallet finger is what they call it. It's like a permanent bend of the finger. So his finger will be bent for the rest of his life.
From what?
He got hit by a pitch.
No kidding.
Got hit by a pitch and
they can't straighten it out?
They can with surgery, but he doesn't want to do surgery. He's 39.
Right.
He's got all this money, so
yeah,
I don't know.
So you think they're going to go out and start looking for pitchers at the trade deadline?
I don't think they're going to wait around. I heard something today that they're not going to wait around anymore. They're just going to get done what they need to get done.
Yeah.
Because if you remember in 2010, they went and got 2 bullpen arms that kind of changed the entire bullpen. Javier Lopez and Ramon Ramirez changed the entire bullpen and the complexity, so they had some specific guys to come in. So maybe they do that. Maybe we see.
What if they continue to struggle and the trade deadline gets here? Do you think they'll have a fire sale and start dumping people?
I think so, because there's a couple guys that are coming up on contract, and as much as I've been a fan of this guy since he's been there, Tim Lincecum,
he's struggling.
He's struggling big time.
Yeah, he had a chance to go long term and chose not to.
Which, as a Giants fan now, I'm thinking.
Yeah, that is the antithesis to the Barry Zito situation, right?
Oh, my God. Don't get me started on that.
Anyway, kudos to your continued loyalty to your ball club. That's cool. And you also, as we sit here, you're on your way to open the McNamara Pool for the summer.
Correct.
Yeah.
McNamara Pool will be open today, starting at 2 o'clock.
We're recording Thursday morning.
Correct. It's open today. It's going to be open, I believe, 5 days a week. Today they're opening it from 2 to 6. It's going to be open from 3 to 6 because of the lifeguard situation. Red Cross got a grant from Pacific Gas and Electric to where they're going to be able to open it up, pay for everybody to come in and swim.
Oh, nice.
They're paying for a hot dog lunch, which...
Is that today?
That's today,
okay.
Thursday. That I'm going to barbecue. We got a good crew coming out to barbecue for the hot dogs and 3 people. Good weather,
it's
really good
hot
weather
out there. Yeah, it's gonna be nice.
And they've done a lot of good work at the pool, and they've opened it up. And it's one of the things that's going to stay when they do the renovation of McNamara Park. We got the $2.6 million grant.
Yeah.
Where they're renovating. They're going to start construction.
Have we started that yet?
We haven't started the construction. We're still in the final planning stages.
Okay.
Apparently, the turf part of it.
We're planning on having that done by the end of this year, correct?
Not by the end of the calendar year, but it'll be open for sure in August. It'll be open for sure next summer so that people can come and play on it, because we're going to start construction. I believe we'll go out to bid here pretty soon, and we'll start construction in December. And there's a lot of construction work that needs to be done for the all-turf fields. There's a bunch of stuff that happens on those all-turf fields with geothermal stuff because they expand and contract. So they need to make sure that they get all that right, and that's the biggest portion of the money. But
do we have local contractors that will be able to take care of that?
Good. We have Garth Pecanino, and I can't remember the engineering company off the top of my head, but Pecanino is the one that's engineering the whole thing and getting all that done. And then they'll go out to bid and find different subcontractors to figure out, what can work.
And we have people in our community that have the capabilities.
Absolutely.
What needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
And that's why, it's all kind of, directional based. So as long as the engineers say, hey, this is what has to happen, A, B, C, D, what engineers do, they'll be able to follow it, and the contractors will be able to come and bid on it. And that's what's best.
So it'll be open for ball next year.
Correct.
For sure.
But there won't be any, they're taking out the softball fields, they're taking out one of the basketball courts, and they're going to be kind of an all-soccer park because we've got a pretty big soccer community in Merced. I think there's something like 10,000 kids in Merced that compete and play in soccer, and then the travel soccer in Merced is huge.
Right.
So they're looking at different travel or different practice field, different areas that they can play on. And then you can also use it for football. So they're going to do flag football and stuff out there. So
Sure.
it'll be good.
Very nice.
It'll be good.
Very nice. And then also you were mentioning that, as I mentioned, we record on Thursday morning. Last night you were at a dinner at the Branding Iron, I believe.
Correct.
With some of our local politicians, Canella and Adam Gray.
Correct.
And those guys. And you were talking about the enterprise zones, which, if you can remember, if you've been listening to our programs, we lost the redevelopment agencies, a couple years ago?
About a year and a half ago, yeah.
About a year and a half ago. And I think the governor didn't quite get as much, contrary to what everybody was telling him.
Correct.
Did not quite get as much as he was hoping for. So now he's looking to go after enterprise zone tax credits, correct?
Correct.
And that could have a substantial effect on us here in Merced.
And the thing is, with the redevelopment agency, like you said, and we've mentioned before, he thought he was going to get about $2.1 billion this year. He only got about 1.2. So they were a little concerned about that. I think a lot of the concern, and I talked to Senator Canella last night, is the fact that they're going to put these programs out there, but their numbers aren't jiving with what everybody else is doing. And they're taking away enterprise zones like this, what the city of Merced and the county of Merced, because it's a county-based program, that have done it the right way.
And basically, just for the listener, an enterprise zone, if you do business in an enterprise zone, you basically get credits for your employees. You get credits for capital improvements. So when you buy a piece of equipment, you get some type of break from the state on that.
Correct.
And those are, they're trying to take those away?
Correct. But they're trying to reinvent it to make it to where it's not just enterprise zones. You know, if you look at the governor's proposal, it looks good on paper, but we're still kind of confused about the numbers. Not, I mean, confused is the wrong word. We're still kind of looking at it and saying, well, you haven't looked at all of what it's done in the right areas. You know, I think Merced has one of the highest unemployment rates. We currently sit at 18%. What the enterprise zones do is they bring companies here and they give you credit to hire people who are in these zones. You know, you have to be 6 months of unemployed, a veteran. And then it also allows for some correctional people that have come out of the correctional facilities an opportunity to work. And so companies look at that and they know they're going to get credits. In regards to the capital improvement, well, some companies aren't doing capital or aren't purchasing equipment like other big corporations are. And so that's kind of a detriment to them because they want the employee tax credit. And it gives them an incentive to hire people, put them to work, because the whole thing is cyclical, and I've said that.
So they would be willing to give back the credit for capital expenditures, but keep the employee.
You know, it was kind of that was kind of the gist of the whole thing. Is what I heard. One of the big ones in Merced is Joseph Gallo Farms, and their big thing is the employee credits and what they can do to bring employees in. Also, A.V. Thomas, I think they hired something like 47 employees, not part-time, not seasonal farm employees, but full-time employees to where they're working. And it's cyclical. You know, if they have a job, they're going to spend money in the economy that's boosting our employment
And these were
tax
47
revenue.
employees that met the criteria
Correct.
for the enterprise zone tax credits.
And it goes throughout the whole area, you know. But there has been, there's been horror stories about, well, this company, they realized they were across the street from an enterprise zone. And this wasn't in Merced, but this was, down south, that they picked up, fired all their employees who were making $18 an hour, fired all their employees, moved across the street, started up, paid them $12 an hour, and they got the enterprise credit. Well, that's an abuse of the system.
Right. And you also mentioned that Union Square in San Francisco is considered an enterprise zone.
Union Square in San Francisco is considered an
and the
enterprise
whole
zone.
intent of these enterprise zones were for economically depressed areas
Exactly.
to try to attract investment.
Exactly. This started in the 70s.
So if
and it's
Union
worked.
Square is not an abuse of the system, I don't know what is.
And that's the thing that people are looking at and starting to question, and that's why the leaders in Sacramento are saying, hold on a second, this isn't working right. But they're not taking into account.
And why do the jerk-offs get to ruin it for everybody?
And that was one of the things that I thought about last night, because it was mentioned, well, can the governor have a task force that says, hey, this group does it right, this group does it right, let's leave them alone, the other groups, let's take their credits away.
Yeah.
But then it's discrimination.
You have to sponsor when someone proposes an economic zone or a enterprise zone. Is there a sponsor attached to that? I mean, if you were at the state of California and you looked at a piece of paper and said Union Square in San Francisco is an enterprise zone, who's responsible for allowing that to happen? Is that possible to backtrack at that point and say, Joe Smith is the guy that proposed this and this is the board that passed it?
It's just the program and the way lines are drawn. And so what the opponents of the enterprise zones are saying is these are gerrymandered areas to boost employment and boost economic development.
Right. But my point is that obviously getting the Union Square designated as an enterprise zone is an abuse of the system. Can you determine the individuals that were responsible for that?
You know, that's something that you could probably go back and look 30 years ago when they probably did it, when they first started it. So, or actually 40 years now. I mean, it started in 1972.
That's what I would like to see happen, is when you see an obvious abuse of the system, pull the son of a gun in front of you and say, you know,
justify yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Justify this.
Well, and the thing is, you know, they expire. Part of the thing is they have to expire at a certain time. It's really hard to renew them. It's really hard to change them. And so because they started it so long ago, I'm sure you could, you know, go back and look at it. And to be honest, I wasn't alive 40 years ago, so I don't know what Union Square in San Francisco was like 40 years ago. But if they were really desperate for work, really desperate for volunteers, or not volunteers, but, you know, different capital improvement and stuff, I don't think that was necessarily the right way to go. You know, that's a jewel in the world, the city of San Francisco, and people from like I said, all over the world come to visit that place. I don't know if it's the best practice to do that.
I can tell you it's not. I mean, if the focus of the enterprise zone, or the reason for enterprise zones, is to attract businesses to economically depressed areas, and you consider Union Square an economically depressed area.
But the other thing you have to remember, and we've talked about this before, is we kind of get overlooked in the Central Valley, and so the power rests in the bigger areas, the Bay Area, San Francisco and the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Long Beach was brought up quite a bit last night, Southern California, which is good that we had Senator Cannella, Assemblyman Gray's representatives there. Assemblyman Gray couldn't be there because he was doing budget stuff in Sacramento, but they came and said, we're working with the people in those communities to understand, to let them know what's going on here, because it's all going to come back to how can we bring everything back together? How can we sit at the table and negotiate? That was the big thing with redevelopment that I don't think people understand, is redevelopment went away not because the governor wasn't willing to negotiate, but because we wanted the way it was and kicking the shins too much, to where the governor and the legislature just finally said,
you made
we're done.
An all or nothing type of negotiation.
And we can't do that anymore.
That's a scary line to walk.
And what Senator Cannella said last night said, let's look at what works in the proposal. Let's look at what doesn't. Let's take it to the table and find out how we can make a deal that works.
Cannella's not going to last in politics. He's way too reasonable.
You know, he said he said something last night that was kind of funny. He said, you know, when we first started dinner, he goes, look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm just going to tell you the way it is. And I don't make very many friends doing this, but this is the way it is. And he's a businessman. He's an engineer.
Right.
He knows, you know, what it takes to get stuff done. And he's making a lot of inroads, and he's trying.
I got a good vibe on him. I just hope he doesn't disappoint. I've been so wrong so many times, but he seems like a dude to me that's comfortable with who he is and is not going to sell out.
Oh no.
And I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know how the game's played. You know, I've never been up there, so I don't know how it works, but I got a lot of hope for him, and we'll see.
The thing is, when you meet him, when you see him, it is what it is.
Well, he looks the part.
And it's the same with Adam too in the assembly, and they work very close together because they recognize the fact that, you know, we're going through a lot of different things now.
Yeah, I think Adam needs to loosen up, man. Just needs to loosen up.
He hasn't even been there a year. He'll be all right. Trust me, he'll be just fine.
Right on. What else were we going to talk about? Your budget. What's happening there?
We have our budget coming up on Monday night. We have to approve a budget Monday with the discretionary money that we have. You know, it's only $38 million of discretionary money, 32 of which comes from sales tax, but then the other 6 point something comes out of our Measure C sales. It's on top of the sales tax. And I apologize for not knowing the number off the top of my head. But we've had an increase this year, you know, and a lot of people want us to spend money, and that's one of the things that we're looking at, saying is now the right time. And there's a lot of organizations that are coming to us and saying at-risk youth or youth services and youth programs, but we're taking that into consideration and looking at it. And
I think one thing we need to look at too is our growth fundamentally sound? You know, is the growth that we project, is it legitimate? And you know, as long as things don't start getting out of whack again, you know, if all of a sudden you see home prices start to jump, you know, absurd amounts, and it just, you know, things just don't start to make sense, then you got to have there's kind of a panic. But it seems to me like this walk back up is being done on more solid footing, if you will. And I think if you know, as a city council member, you sit and you look at the budget and talk to your budget guy who, you said was a pretty sharp guy as far as being realistic about the projections and so forth, then, I would feel comfortable, budgeting to that,
And that's what we're trying to do. And since I've been on the council, one of the things that we have said is sustainability. We want sustainability. We can't continue to rob Peter to pay Paul, if you will, and looking at the general fund. So what we're trying to say is, let's stay where we're at. Let's look at this. And you brought it up last time I was on about 1 year doesn't make a trend, and that's true. We can continue to look at this, and see maybe next year is a good time to look at this. We've got all the proposals. But the thing is, just because you come to us and ask us for money doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. Because when we set our priorities, the priorities are based on the community needs and what the majority of the community is. We don't sit up there as a council in isolation. We don't say, well, this is what's good for us. We sit up there saying, well, this is what the community has asked us. This is what we're going to do that's best for the community. And so I think that's one thing that we're looking at. The thing that kind of scares me a little bit is we're still concerned about what the state's going to do and what the federal government's going to do with sequestration, with healthcare. The state, we just got a memo. They're taking away, we're not going to get as much gas tax revenue as we thought because they had to fill a hole in a different pot. And so they said, well, we'll give you an IOU, which who knows when you're going to see that. And we don't budget for it.
I hear you.
We just say,
crazy
okay,
the way
well,
things work. It's just, the state rules the roost, don't they?
Well, the thing is, we can only operate because the state allows us to operate. So we're an entity of the state of California.
And is that the way it was meant to be?
They control it. So, I don't know. I mean,
they call the shots up in Sacramento.
You can go back to, the way back when our founding fathers started it, is it going to be state control? Is it going to be federal government? Is it going to go, back and forth? And so I think what they're doing is saying, we're going to let you kind of do your thing with the money that we're going to give you, but we can also take it away. It's that whole realignment. I know Sheriff Payson talks about it all the time.
That's how they control you. I mean, that's how they have control, and if they don't like the way you're doing things, what do they threaten?
Taking the money away.
Absolutely.
But the good thing is we have in the city, we have a good council that kind of recognizes that. We understand that, hey, look, let's keep the money here. Let's keep what we have. I mean, $194 million, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So what we're saying is let's keep it here. Let's look at the services that we're providing to our citizens who have asked us to continue to provide those services and continue it going forward.
So is the general fund allocation still a negotiating process right now, or do you pretty much have a framework for where you think it's going to go?
It's still a negotiating process. There's going to be a proposal that I'm going to put out.
You have till the end of June, right?
We do have till the end of June.
We're sitting here, it's the 13th.
June 13th.
Yeah.
We meet on the 17th. It has to be passed. We can always have a special meeting. I know there's a proposal that we're going to do.
You think there's going to be some good conversation about this, or do you think everybody's kind of on the same page?
I think there's going to be some good conversation.
Which is healthy. And, that's healthy.
I'm going to bring up a proposal on Monday night about how we can take care of some of the animal control issues that we've had without taking money out of our general fund and kind of realigning some of the way that we're going to do things. I'm looking forward to the discussion on that. I don't think it's going to be very popular,
right,
but I think it's something that the community is concerned about, especially with animal control. So we'll see how that works out.
Right.
The good thing is we've had good dialogue. Myself, I've had good dialogue with the county and getting the county involved and how they can help us out with this problem, and because that's what we're going to need going forward. We're not going to be able to operate as individual entities. We're going to have to look at everybody and see, hey, how can we work together to do what's best for everybody?
Right.
So.
And there is some good news. I mean, there's no personnel losses this year, correct?
Correct.
I even heard that you were thinking about hiring 4 new officers.
We are. We will.
DART team.
Yes, correct.
For distressed area response team. Is that the correct acronym?
I think it's distressed or designated area response team. It's one of the two, but they're going to be hiring them. It's 4 new officers, which is good. And
Mike Murphy, and I'm going to keep saying this because it's a term that I think is very relevant. He said they're going to be addressing quality of life issues in our community.
Correct.
And it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, and the thing is, you talked to, there was another council colleague of mine, Tony DeSetti, who brought up the fact that, the people are concerned about, on the south side of town, more concerned about going for a walk and getting attacked by a stray dog or something like that, right, as opposed to if there's a gunshot or something like that. They're concerned about their quality of life because the gunshots are going to target themselves, and there's incidental consequences, but it's the quality of life issue, making sure that, hey, when, little old lady wants to go walk down the street for her daily walk, she doesn't want to be she doesn't want to have to worry about a stray dog running around.
Citizens of this town should be able to go for a walk when they want.
Correct.
And not feel unsafe. And that's not necessarily the case right now.
Correct.
Especially in certain areas of the city.
And that's what we need to focus on. When we look at some of the other programs that they're pushing, it's like, well, if the community hasn't necessarily said this is a quality of life issue, this isn't something that, we want to live here, then we got to take that into consideration. And I think that one of the things with the animal control, we got to make sure that, we can find out a way, because we have 1.5 officers that takes care of that. If we can find a way to get it up, I think that'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, Mr. Josh, we're running out of time here. Is there anything else we need to get out there before I let you go?
A couple things. One, Veterans Memorial Bridge on M Street. I just want to make a quick mention, being it's the fair this week. The fair week is...
Now remind me where Veterans Memorial Bridge is.
M Street by the hospital, by the old hospital. So if you go M Street in Bear Creek...
Goes over Bear Creek? Okay.
Correct. Being that it's Fair Week this week, and their theme is thanks to the veterans, the thing that City of Merced did was they put flags out. Usually they put them out for 4th of July and Flag Day and stuff like that. Well, they put them out earlier this year. We got an email from a community resident saying, it's great, thank you very much for putting that there, but the plants in the planter boxes on the bridge aren't up to snuff. Can you do something about that? He sent this out to a bunch of different community individuals. The individuals took it upon themselves to get it done with the help of George Perez, who's a crew member for the City of Merced, replanted all the flowers. They're going to do a proposal to fix the irrigation because it's antiquated. And that's something that, when I looked at that, this was nothing that the city got involved in. It was a community coming up to us saying, hey, this is something that we have an issue with. Can we do it? With the help of the city, right. They did it. We didn't have to go through all the red tape, and so I think that's something
that's good
amazing.
To hear. That's great to hear because we want to get away from the mindset that we're dependent on the government for everything.
Correct.
You see something needs to be done, take the initiative, do it. Now there needs to be communication.
Absolutely.
You don't want to just go out and start doing something without saying, "Hey, I'm going to do it first." You can't just go and prove because your heart moves you to. You need to go through the proper channels. But that is awesome to hear that people are seeing an issue and saying, we can take care of it ourselves.
Correct.
And not looking to Big Brother or the government to say, hey, we got something we need done.
And that's one of the cool things. We live in a town of 80,000 people, but with 80,000 people, you have a group of individuals who say, hey, this is our community. This is what we want to look. And people drive across that all day.
Take ownership of it.
And
it
so
is your community.
They have, and they've done that. And
I've said it a million times, Josh. This community is going to be what we make it.
Correct.
It's going to be what the people in this town make it. And it goes across all socioeconomic boundaries. You have a mansion or a small home, you can keep it clean. You can keep your streets clean. You can keep your bushes trimmed. And that makes everybody's life a little bit better here.
And that's what it is. It's changing the narrative of Merced's a good place. Instead of everybody saying Merced's a bad place to go, Merced is a good place. We have good people who get involved. And that's something that, I'm really proud of. The other thing real quick, I went out on a ride-along with a group called Mentoring Odd Jobs Organization, and they take, some youth. Mojo. They took some
Sam
youth.
Rangel and
Rochelle Abril.
Yep.
They take some youth out, and they teach them skills. They don't just teach them how to work, though. They have to go through a training class to where they actually, public speaking and how to, do math and bid and on these projects and stuff. And one of the things that went out, it was Monday that I went out, and the kids wanted to work. And as a high school teacher doing telling kids to do physical labor, it's hard enough. But these kids went out there, they took ownership of it, and nobody did anything. I mean, the Sam Rangel and Rochelle, they didn't do anything. The kids did it. They knew the value of hard work. They knew what was important. And I mean, at the end, they're going to make money, but they understood that they were learning skills.
Hey, whatever motivates them. It's the American way, baby. If money gets you out there and gets you working, then amen to you.
And I talked to one of the kids who happened to be a former student of mine, I go, well, what got you into the program? They said, well, do you want a job? Do you want to work and make some money? He said, yeah, I'll do it.
Yep.
So we did, and that was good. So
the more opportunity that we can create, the better for everyone.
And we just need community partners. And they're not asking money from the city. They're asking for, if any organization or anybody has an old lawnmower laying around they're not using or any other lawn equipment they're not using, that's stuff that they can put to good use. And I think that's something that we need to get behind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, sir.
Last thing I got to say, though, real quick, is if I didn't do this, my dad and Sheriff Payson and a bunch of everybody, got to wish all the fathers out there happy Father's Day, because it's a good thing coming up, and we just celebrated in June, we had a proclamation that June is the month of fathers. We didn't do it for Mother's Day in May, which I got yelled at by my wife, but we'll change that next time.
But I will say, in my opinion, both parties are equally important.
Oh, absolutely.
And fathers, you are so important to your children and where we are heading, not only as a community, but as a country.
As a society in general.
Society in general. So kudos to you.
Right on. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Go Giants.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.